So, okay, here's the bleed through test, right? Out of all of those, the one that really bled through was this dye ink. So just so you know, you can do this sort of test with your own stamps, but this is a really good indication of how the bleed through is. So there's one more thing we want to do. We want to do a bleeding test. So if you were to happen to get these wet, which ones are going to bleed your lines? So in order to see whether these lines bleed or not, I just have a simple watercolor brush, and we're just going to drop some water on these. So I have to get it wet. There we go. Okay, so this one looks like it is permanent. It's basically waterproof, and it does or does not bleed through. It does not bleed through. Okay, here's the Ranger Distress ink. This one is bleeding somewhat. You're starting to get a bit of a brown, a little light tan shadow. So this is doing some bleeding, but it's not horrible. Now on the back side, you're starting to see that it has bled through the page. So that's the Ranger Distress inks. Let's try the Stampabilities ink pad. This one also is starting to show a bit of a dye spread. So this one is not completely dye proof, but it's not horrible. And it does not seem to be bleeding through. There's a bit of a shadow, but it doesn't seem to be bleeding through the back of the page. This dye ink actually is bleeding as well, you can see. And of course, we already know that it bleeds through the page. Here's another pigment ink. This one is bleeding somewhat, not horribly, but a little, but it's not bleeding through the page. And then the last is this chalk marker. And you can see you're really losing your lines on that one. So depending on how you want to illustrate and color in your designs for your stamps, these are kind of the things that you have to factor into what kind of tools you're going to use in choosing your inks.